to discuss, right? The topic that we are going to start tonight is the position of women during the ancient India. And last week I sent you a lecture note regarding the women's positions within the Jain period, within the tradition, under the tradition of Mahavira. And today we are going to discuss about the position of the women during the Vedic period. Right, so especially during the early Vedic period and later Vedic period, we are going to discuss that tonight. And within our next lecture, we are going to talk about the attitudes or the position attitudes towards women, or the position where the women held during the Buddha's era. Right, so Buddha's attitude towards the women. That will be our next week topic. And tonight we are going to discuss about the position of women during the early Vedic period as well as the later Vedic period, right? So we have already discussed about this in a very brief manner when we were discussing the Vedic period, right? Now let's look at the lecture note tonight. Right, so ancient India spans from period 2005 roughly, if you take the rough figure, 2500 BCE to 250 BC. Right, so archaeological facts, ancient texts and artifacts suggest the lives of women during the ancient India. Right, so far when we were discussing about the historical historical information, we almost based on the archaeological facts or the literature or the ancient texts and artifacts, right? And same archaeological facts, ancient texts and artifacts, through those historical evidences, we could gain information about the lives of the women during the ancient India, right? So for example, there were female goddess, right? Female goddess within the ancient India. We learned that during the ancient India, female deities were there, right? So we learned those facts, and some deficits regarding the pregnant women, the women giving birth to children or women nursing children. Likewise, those facts also discuss about the women's position and their social life during the ancient India, right? So the story of Indian women's self-respect and self-fulfillment has number of ups and downs, right? So it was like a flow, right? So at the early period, they had a very strong identification within the society, especially during the early Vedic period. But especially due to the Brahmanism and the caste division, the women lost their priority, lost their position where they held during the early Vedic period. Right, so due to this extensive caste system and Brahmanism, Indian women were also given a very lower position within the society, right? So even though they hold a very good position, they were independent within the early Vedic period, but later on with the effects of the Brahmanism as well as especially due to the Brahmanism and caste division, right? So the women lost their independence and equal position which was given by the society. But due to the errors of religion Buddhism, Buddha always tried to provide an inferior position to women within the society, right? So this is just a brief summary to the lecture that we are going to discuss tonight, right? So even though earlier, now when we talk about the Vedic period, it could be divided into two: early Vedic period and later Vedic period, right? So early Vedic period, women enjoyed a great position within the society, right? They had all the independence, they enjoyed their rights within the society. But when it comes to the later Vedic period, the Brahmanism, due to the Brahmanism, the Brahminical traditions, and due to the caste division, and also due to the huge sacrificial offerings and all, due to the due to as a result of those facts, what happened was women also lost their independence within the society, right? So, and as a result, now against those Brahminical traditions, we learned that many religions were arose within the society. Somewhere in 6th century BCE, right? So the Buddhism and Jainism were two main religions where the arose within the 6th century BCE. Buddha and Mahavira, they both tried to give an equal position to women. They tried to give an equal or higher standard position to women within the society. Right now, let's look at the Vedic women. Right, so Veda is simply we known as knowledge. We have already discussed about those facts. Right, so Aryan civilization, when we learned these facts. Right, so preserved 4 Vedas in terms of Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharva Veda. We discussed about those facts, right? So in order to learn more about Vedic civilization, we always need to depend upon the Vedic literature, right? So when we were learning more about the Vedic civilization, we always depend upon the Vedic literature. Through Vedic literature, we learned more about their social conditions, political conditions, how the women were treated, their religions, and etc. We always based upon the literature as well as some artifacts and archaeological evidences and etc. Right? For the ease of understanding, historians divided the entire era. Now we are talking about the Vedic civilization. We already talked about this civilization. Under the Vedic civilization, today we are going to talk about the position of women under the Vedic civilization. Within the Vedic civilization, the position of women, the position held by the women that we are going to talk tonight, right? So if we take the entire Vedic period, for the due to the similar characteristics they held, historians divided the entire period into 2 segments: early Vedic period and later Vedic period, right? So early Vedic period roughly spans from 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE, whereas later Vedic period spans from 1000 BC to 500 BCE. Now let's look at the early Vedic period, right? So nothing more. Within this topic, we are going to talk about the position held by the women during these eras, during these 2 eras, right? So the position of the women held during the early Vedic period, and the position of the women, how they enjoyed their rights and all during what happened to their rights, what happened to their independence during the later Vedic period, right? So that is what we are going to talk tonight, right? So now we'll look at the early Vedic period, how the women were recognized during the early Vedic period, right? Family was patriarchal typed, right? So we learned this fact. What do we mean by patriarchal? Where the father was the dominant person within the society. If we take the main point of the society was the family, and within that family, father was the dominant person. He was the one who controlled the family. If you take the main unit, was the family, and the leader of the family was father. That is what we identified as the patriarchal type, right? So women, even though the family was patriarchal type, women had some control over the family, right? So even though father based families were there, women also had some responsibilities, and they had some rights to control over the family. Even though father was the basic person within the or the controller of the family, women also, the mother also had some control over the family. They had the chance to control the family. The women had the chance to take decision on behalf of the family. Not only the father, the mother also had some rights to take decisions on behalf of the family, right? So they both held equal rights over the family, right? So they both controlled over the family and the entire household. Rigvedic hymns describes a stage where women enjoyed an equal status with men, right? So Rigvedic hymns describes that women also, during the early Vedic period, women enjoyed equal status with men. No difference was there. Very egalitarian concept was there. Both the men and women held equal status within the society, right? Some of the Vedic sacrifices were performed jointly by husband and wife, right? So this is all about the early Vedic period, but we learned this already. When it comes to the later Vedic period, women lost their rights and lost their independence. But within the early Vedic period, both the husband and wife, they collaborated, and they both together they jointly performed sacrificial ceremonies. By this we could identify the fact that even the women had the chance to perform sacrificial offerings. They too had the chance to perform sacrificial offerings during the early Vedic period. But when it comes to the later Vedic period, they lost every right. They had no chance even to attend the ceremonies. But within the early Vedic period, both the husband and wife, they joined together and they performed sacrificial ceremonies, where patriarchy never denied women their rights and privileges. Even though the father-based families were there, even though the father was the main person with the unit of the family, patriarchy did not deny the women's right and privileges, right? Even though the father was the main person, women were also given some kind of recognition within the family and within the society, right? Within the early Vedic period. During the fourth and third centuries BCE, girls were given education. This is something important. During the early Vedic period, girls were given education. They had chance to learn and take the education. But this was practically confined to well-to-do families. Now, during the early Vedic period, there were no class division, right? No classes were there during the early Vedic period. The people had to choose their occupations. People had to choose their occupations according to their wish. Due to that fact, due to their earning levels, but all the people within the society were equal. No class division was there. Due to the occupations and due to the based on the earning levels, the society was divided like rich and poor, well-to-do families and poor families, right? But there was no difference at all among the people, right? So the rich people had the chance to, as they were able to make the payments for studies, rich people usually get the chance to educate their children. Rich people get the chance to educate their children. Further, there was an initiation ceremony or upanayana for both the girls and boys. No difference was there. All the boys and girls had same rights to take the education, right? No caste division was there, but based on their earnings, there was rich and poor people. Like today, the rich and poor people were there within the society, right? And education was regarded as an essential to secure a suitable marriage, right? So the each and every child, no matter if the child is girl or boy, they had the similar chance to take the education, and education was regarded as a essential like a qualification to get a suitable marriage. right? So education was well-worthy fact within the early Vedic period. In Rig Vedic society, child marriage did not exist. During the early Vedic period, child marriage did not exist, but within the later Vedic period, it was well prevalent, the child marriages. We will come to that fact later. But during the early Vedic period, child marriages did not exist. Thereby, women got the opportunity to acquire the education. No child marriages was there. Thereby, all the girls or girls and women, they got the opportunity to acquire the education, right? The educators during this era wisely divided women into two groups, right? Through these literature facts, we could say that there was a developed or advanced education system prevailed during the early Vedic period, right? Educators wisely divided women into two groups based on the education that they will get: Brahmavadinis and Sadyodvahas. Right? So Brahmavadinis these were lifelong students of theology and philosophy, right? The educators divided the women into two groups according to the education that they are getting. The first group was Brahmavadinis, right? So this group of girls, they were lifelong students. They learned, they studied throughout their life. Especially the theology and philosophy. The other group is Sadyodvahas, and this group of women used to learn their studies till their marriage, right? This group of people, women, especially women, they used to study or used to learn up until their marriage, right? So the educators wisely divided the women or the girls into two groups: Brahmavadinis and Sadyodvahas. These Brahmavadinis are the people, they had a lifelong learning throughout their life. They learned especially theology and philosophy. And Sadyodvahas, this is a specific group of girls or women. They used to learn up until their marriage, right? Many educated women during this is something important to note. Many educated women became teachers and Upadhyayinis. Upadhyayinis means like very respectable position, like teachers, right? Many educated women during the early Vedic period became teachers, right? Women had the chance to learn about music and dancing, right? So many educated women, they educated themselves, they learned well, and they became teachers, right? So then they gave their knowledge to the younger generation as well, right? So by these facts, we could identify the position where the women held during the Rig Vedic period, right? Women were well educated, they were well intelligent, they could control the society, right? They were very independent because by there were teachers, there were philosophers, right? There were poets, lady poets were there. Thereby, they did a service. They provided rendered a great service to the society. Not only that, they were very independent. By doing that specific those occupations, they earned for them. They did not depend upon the men. Rather, they worked and they earned for them, right? Women had the chance to learn music and dancing, right? So they were there was a very egalitarian society, right? So they enjoyed their freedom, right? So, but when it comes to the later Vedic period, they were all these abilities were restricted, right? So women were not allowed to learn anything. They were not given any education. They were prohibited to learn music and dancing likewise. But within the early Vedic period, they had the chance, they were given the chance to learn whatever they want, especially when it comes to the music and dancing. There were many capable, sagacious women during this era. Some examples were Viswasara, Apala, Gosha, Lopamudra, and there were several other educated, intelligent women were there during the Rigvedic period, early Vedic period. There were many women poets and philosophers during this period, right? Many poets and philosophers, right? So this indicate the fact that the women held a very important position within the society. They were very educated, they were intelligent enough. They taught what they learned to the younger generations, right? So thereby they held a great position within the society. This confirms the fact that women were given equal opportunities within the society, right? They were given equal position to learn whatever they want and to do whatever they want within the society like men. And they were intelligent and capable as men, right? They were intelligent enough and capable as men to learn, to earn, and to live the life what they want, as they want. Gender, power, politics were not conscious during this early Vedic period, right? If we talk about gender, power, politics were not that conscious during the early Vedic period, right? So this may be due to these facts were not that conscious, basically due to the fact that the Rigvedic period or the early Vedic period, it was the developing stage of the society, right? The society was developing during the early Vedic period, thereby gender, power, and politics were not that conscious during this period, right? Thus, during this poetical period, women were not neglected, right? Women were not neglected within the society. They were given a proper identification within the society, right? They were given a better position than the subsequent times, right? Especially when it comes to the later Vedic period, they were actually neglected by the society. They were not given the required position within the society. But comparatively, when we talk about the early Vedic period, there was a identification was given to women. The suitable position was given to women within the society. They were not neglected. Even during the early Vedic period, the birth of son was much more welcomed than the birth of the girl, right? So even though the women were given a better position or the same position like men within the early Vedic period, birth of a son was much welcomed than the birth of a girl, right? Family, even though they had the similar identification and a great position within the society by women, the birth of a son to a family was more welcomed than birth of a girl, right? That was more welcomed. But the Rigvedic society was free from social evils like female infanticide, sati, and child marriage, right? So even though that fact was there, the having a male child or a birth of a son was more welcomed. Even though Rigvedic society was very egalitarian and very peaceful society, right? Early Vedic period, the society was free from social evils like female infanticide, sati, and child marriage, right? So what do we mean by sati? Sati is a sacrificial offering or the should be performed by the widow women. Once her husband dies, she had to sacrifice herself by throwing herself into the husband's funeral pyre, right? We learned that thing, right? So but these evil concepts were not there within the early Vedic period, like female infanticide, sati, and child marriages were not there within the early Vedic period. Girls normally married after the puberty, right? Girls normally within the early Vedic period, it was a very peaceful time, right? Even though the society was not developed much, there was a very peaceful condition within the early Vedic period, right? No evil social levels were there, right? So girls normally married after the puberty. And both the girls and boys of the society had the freedom to choose their partners, right? So this is something important to note. This drastically, this fact is drastically different within the later Vedic period. Within the early Vedic period, both the girls and the boys had the chance to choose to select their life partners by their own, right? Not only the boys, even the girls had the chance to select had the freedom to select their life partners according to their wish. But what happened when it comes to the later Vedic period? When it comes to the later Vedic period, even though within the early Vedic period, patriarchy was there, uh, within the later Vedic period, fathers always tried to control the entire family, right? Mother was never given a chance to take decisions on behalf of the family, and girls especially, they had to depend upon their parents decisions, right? Especially girls, not boys. The girls had to marry whatever the person, whoever the person, where their parents decide. They never get the chance to, they never had the freedom to choose their life partners, right? But within the early Vedic period, girls had the chance to had the freedom to choose their life partners according to their wish. During the Rigvedic period, caste system was not much prevalent, right? We learned this. During the Rigvedic period, no caste division was there. There was no compartmentalization of the society. The society was not divided into several hierarchies, right? No caste division was there. But when it comes to the later Vedic period, society was divided into several compartments, several hierarchies, right? Likewise, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. But no classes, no castes, no division was there within the early Vedic period. All the people within the society were same, right? All the men, as well as all the people of the society were same, and all the men and women hold equal rights within the society, right? And due to this fact, intercaste marriages were more prevalent, right? No castes were there. People had the chance to marry any person that they want. But during the later Vedic period, the intercaste marriages were prohibited, right? Intercaste marriages were prohibited. People had absolute freedom to choose their jobs, not only to choose their life partners, but also to choose their jobs. People had the chance to choose their jobs according to their wish. But due to the class division, when it comes to the later Vedic period, what happened was, due to the class division, each and every person, according to their the classes, they were given respectable positions and respectable occupations, right? So Brahmins, they were the ones who dominated the entire society, and they always tried to advise the Kshatriyas. That was their job, advise the Kshatriyas, or the warriors, or the kings, or the ones who rule the country, rulers. And apart from that, their job was to perform sacrificial ceremonies, right? That was their job. And Kshatriyas, they only had the chance to rule the country, or any other provisions, right? So Vaishyas, they were the business persons, right? Shudras, they were actually slaves. They were servants to the upper groups, right? So by the society, when it comes within the later Vedic period, by the society, the people's the occupations were determined by their birth. Everything was determined, even though they liked or not. Everything was predetermined, right? But early Vedic period, it was very peaceful society. People had the chance to choose the occupation, whatever they like, whatever they want, according to their education level and according to their choice. They had the chance to select the occupation according to their wish. Rigvedic women enjoyed economic independence into some extent, right? So as we learned that they worked, Rigvedic early Vedic women, they learned, they educated themselves, right? They worked as teachers, they worked as philosophers, they worked as poets, right? And apart from that, they worked as weavers by weaving cotton and wool, dyeing embroidery work, and etc. They did several occupations according to their wish, according to their talent, according to their educational levels, right? They had that chance. Thereby, those women had the chance to make themselves independent. They never depend upon the men, right? When it comes to the later Vedic period, they had no chance to educate themselves. They had no chance to work to earn from them. Thereby, what happened was they had to depend upon the men. They had to always depend upon the men, right? But early Vedic period, women educated themselves. They had the chance to understand and identify their talents, and thereby they had the chance to choose their occupation. Thereby, what happened was they earned for them, and they were more economically independent, right? Um and also, Rigvedic women enjoyed freedom of life. They were very free. They enjoyed a free life. They never depend upon the men, right? They had the freedom to attend festivals, fairs, social gatherings with their loved ones, either husbands or families, right? They had the chance to, they had that freedom to attend festivals, fairs, ceremonies, or social gatherings with their loved ones, with the husbands, with the children, with parents, right? And also, when we were talking about the Vedic society earlier, we learned that fact the during the early Vedic period, the women of the early Vedic period, they had the chance to uh, attend the social gatherings like Samiti and Sabha, right? Hope you can remember, we discussed that, and they had the chance to come up with their ideas. They had the right to come up with their ideas to make the decisions for the society, right? They had that right, right? Aryans believed that both the husbands and wives especially within the early Vedic period, both the husband and wife hold equal rights in every aspect, right? They believe that both the husband and wife has hold equal rights in every aspect, and both took equal part in all duties, right? Egalitarian condition was prevailed in between both the husband and wife, right? So they both took equal part in all duties, religious and social, right? The degradation came within the post-Vedic period or the later Vedic period, right? Degradation started to happen during the later Vedic period. Historians place number of reasons for this change, and main reason for this was the caste system, right? So the early Vedic period, we already discussed that, very peaceful society was there. Women enjoyed their all the rights. They had the chance to educate themselves. They had the chance to work on any occupation that they wanted. But when it comes to the later Vedic period, the degradation occurred. Women lost their power within the society. They were neglected within the society, and this happened basically due to the caste division. This caste division and the Brahmanism and caste division. This was basically started, right? So the now let's look at the post-Vedic period, or the what happened within the post-Vedic period or the later Vedic period, right? So the age of Dharma Shastra. So what Dharma Shastras is a Sanskrit text based on the which talks about the law and conduct, right? Dharma Shastras is a specific Sanskrit text which talks about the law and conduct. This was well prevalent during the 6th century BCE, right? So that's that particular era is identified as the age of the Dharma Shastras. The 6th century BCE is one of the most active period of ancient Indian history, right? Due to the identification of Buddhism and other several religions, and all the Brahmanism, they wanted to uh, 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 supply some contrasting opinions to the Brahmanism and caste division. Thereby, many religions came into action. Right, thereby 6th century BCE could be identified as one of the most active period within the ancient Indian history. Right, so thus due to this fact, this period, especially the 6th century BCE, was known as by it has been identifying by using several names such as second urbanization, rise of heterodox sect, age of Dharma Shastra's age, right? So the as the 6th century BCE is identified as the period, one of the most active period within the Indian history. It is identified, or it is known by several names such as second urbanization, or rise of heterodox sect, or age of Dharma Shastra's age, right? So great changes occurred in the lives of the Aryan between 500 BCE and 600 BCE. Now we are going to talk about the life changes occurred during the later Vedic period, right? In the post-Rigvedic period, there was a huge reaction against the sacrificial ceremonies and rituals, right? Yeah, early Vedic period also, within the early Vedic period, the sacrificial ceremonies and rituals were there, right? But they were not that but they were those sacrificial ceremonies and rituals never tried to control the lives of the people, right? But when it comes to the later Vedic period, what happened was the Brahmanism, the Brahminical order was more prevalent. Those Brahmins wanted to control the lives of the other people. Thereby, what happened was there was a huge reaction was made against the sacrificial ceremonies and rituals, right? Smriti, right? So this is a specific concept. Smriti is a Hindu religious text containing traditional teaching on religions such as Mahabharata, right? So there were several Smriti writers like Kautilya, Mani, Yajnavalkya, right? So they always, now these Smriti writers, right? So Smriti is a Hindu religious text containing traditional religious teachings, and there were some Smriti writers like Kautilya, Manu, and Yajnavalkya, right? They were more prevalent within the later Vedic period, and these Smriti writers always tried to favor the seclusion of women. They tried to neglect the position of the women. They tried to lower the status of the women, right? Indian women became much more restricted during the Smriti writers period, right? These Smriti writers, through their poets and through their literature, they always tried to lower the positions of the women, right? So due to that fact, Indian women, especially during the later Vedic period, the Indian women became more restricted during these Smriti writers period. She was started to treat as a chattel, right? During this period, women were started to treat as servants within chattel, or servants within the society. She was given no separate identity for her own, right? She never given a separate identity, rather where she had to always depend upon the men. These scriptures which were written this era, well as the Dharma Shastra, favored the patriarchal system, right? These Smriti writers as well as the Dharma Shastra always favored the patriarchal system. Now, we learned that during the early Vedic period was also the patriarchal society was there. But even though the patriarchal society was there, the father never tried to control the mother, right? Men never tried to control the women within the society. But what happened was, within the later Vedic period, they always try to highlight the fact of the patriarchy. They wanted to highlight the qualities and the standard position of the men within the society and neglect the women, right? It is marginalized the role of the Indian women, right? The Smriti writers, through their poets and through their literature, they always marginalize the role of Indian women. Nothing but implicit obedience and subordination was expected from her, right? So the men of the society, men, the caste system, Smriti writers, Brahminical tradition, they all, what they wanted is to women to have a implicit obedience for men, and subordination was expected from women of the society, right? The society finally secluded the women. What happened was, ultimately they secluded the women. The freedom she enjoyed during the Rigvedic period was taken away from her, right? Even though the society was developed, actually that is not the actual development. The early Vedic period, the society was, even though it was not developed, the all the people within the society, they enjoyed their rights, they enjoyed their freedom, right? But what happened when it comes to the later Vedic period, they took the freedom, uh, they taken the freedom enjoyed by the women as well as the lower class people, right? They taken the freedom enjoyed especially by the women. Prepubescent marriages became the order of the day, right? Prepubescent marriage, or as we could say child marriages, became prevalent within the later Vedic period, right? So because now patriarchal family system was there, all the decisions were made by the parents, right? So in order to get a higher dowry, parents make their girl, especially the girls, married to rich person, right? Rich husbands or rich males. Thereby they received a higher dowry to their families, right? So they had no chance, the girls had no chance to select their or to choose their life partners. What happened was, according to their parents' wish, according to their father's wish, they had to choose their life partners. They had to obey their parents' decisions, right? Prepubescent marriages or child marriages became the order of the day. The general belief was that if women were given the freedom, they would transgress the limits, thereby no freedom was given to the women, right? So they highlighted the fact that, especially the Smriti writers and Brahmins, they highlighted the fact that if the women were given the freedom, they would transgress the limit. They would transgress the limits, thereby they secluded the women. They did not give any freedom to women, right? The social customs and traditions which were reinforced by the law degraded the women, right? The all the social customs and traditions were reinforced by the law degraded women, right? There were not giving any sense of equality or justice through this law. Several laws were reinforced, and by this law, what happened was, no equality or no justice was given to the women, right? What happened through this new reinforced law was, they further secluded the women. They further taken away the rights of the women. They lost their rights. Women had no recognition, and this women had no recognition within the society. They were given no recognition within the society, and this further revealed that the laws like pertaining to marriage, divorce, property rights, and rights of inheritance, there were several laws were made through new laws, such as pertaining to marriage, divorce, properties, rights, and rights of inheritance. And through all these rights, what happened was ultimately women lost their rights. They lost their rights within the society, right? So there was a very strong discrimination is shown by these Brahminical laws. A strong discrimination was shown by these Brahminical laws. Society was based on the caste system where Brahmins occupied the top position within the society. We know that fact. The religions like Buddhism and Jainism tried their best to establish equality among the people in India, right? So the Brahmins tried to control the entire society according to their wish. What they did was they divided the entire society into several classes, and thereby they tried to dominate the entire society. And as a result, several religions were rose within the 6th century BCE, like Buddhism and Jainism, one of the major religions, right? So they tried their best to establish equality among the people of the India, not only for the lower caste people, but also especially for the women, right? Um, but some of their efforts produced some negative results. Even though Buddha and Mahavira, they wanted to provide a better position for women, some of their efforts produced some negative results, right? So now let's look at what are those negative results. First of all, actually they did not make any negative results, but what happened was the Brahmins tried to make negative results, right? Let's look at what are they. First of all, Brahminical religion began to encourage pre-pubescent marriages in order to detain women from going into the monastic orders, right? So the Brahminical religions or the Brahmins, in order to stop the women going for the monasteries, what they did was Brahmins, they always wanted to improve the prepubescent marriages or the child marriages. In order to now, with when a girl get into the marriage within her child time, then they don't have the chance to go to monasteries, right? They had to stick with their families to provide do all the responsibilities, right? They believed that ascetic ideals destabilize the society as well as the family, right? They made aware that actually this wasn't true, right? Actually, even though this wasn't true, always if you take Buddhism, within the Buddha's teaching, we could learn how to have a better and a successful family life, right? But what Brahmins did was they always wanted to this they wanted to avoid the people going to the monasteries and embracing those religions, and thereby they made the fact that they made aware that ascetic ideals would destabilize the societies as well as the family, right? The patriarchal family became very powerful during this period, and it began to restrict the activities of the women. The women were restricted to attend the monasteries and to have conversations with the Buddhist monks and all. Thereby, they wanted to restrict all the facilities or all the learnings of the women, right? This hindered the social activities of the women as well as their development. They never given a chance to attend the monasteries to learn the actual facts about the life. Thereby, these social activities, as they were neglected within the society, as all the facts were rejected, what happened was the women, they hindered their social activities. They had no chance to learn the truth of the society, right? This belief adversely affected the position of the Indian women. Women's position within the family as well as within the society became very low. right? Women lost their position within the society within the later Vedic period. Women were identified as weak-minded persons within the later Vedic period. They were identified as weak-minded person. Actually, they were not weak, right? So within the early Vedic period, they were very strong. They had they were very educated. They did the occupations according to their wish, right? They were very talented, but uh, later Vedic period, they were secluded, they were hindered their abilities, thereby the society itself, even though women were not weak, actually they are strong. Actually, women were strong, but society identified women as weak-minded persons. But actually, they were not. And this was the identity given by the women within the society, right? And also another ideal concept became more popular during this period was women needs protection and disciplining throughout the lifetime. Women needs protection and disciplining throughout the lifetime, right? So this was well reflected within the ancient writing, like within the Smriti writings. The women were secluded, and they further identified that the women needs the protection, lifelong protection, right, from the men. But actually, they had the ability to protect themselves, right? Protect themselves, but society made aware them that they can't live a better life without men, right? Without men, right? Entire society treated women in a very bad manner. They did not receive the acquired justice, equality within the society, within the later Vedic period. Thus, this hindered their creativity, freshness, growth, and development throughout their lifetime. Right. So, what happened was ultimately due to this neglection, what happened was this hindered the creativity of the women, freshness, their growth, their development throughout their lifetime, because they were secluded, right? They were became caged birds, right? Like caged birds, they had no chance to see the outside, to learn the new things from the world. They had no chance to go to monasteries. They had no chance to develop their spiritual life, even though they wanted to. All the things were restricted by the society, right? They treated the women as very weak-minded persons, right? Actually, they were not weak, they were strong enough, right? That was the identification given by the society, right? They identified the women that throughout their lifetime the protection was needed from the men, but women could protect themselves by themselves. They had that ability to protect themselves, right? Right. Then what happened was ultimately the Indian women, they also, even actually they were not, but due to these myths and all, they also started to think that they were weak. Women also started to think that they were weak. They can't survive without a man, without a father, without a husband, without their grown children, right? So women came to think that they can't survive without men, right? So thereby they always try to depend upon the men, right? Ultimately what happened was actually they were independent, they were capable, but the society what the society did made the intention that they were not capable enough, right? Thereby what happened was women also started to think, oh, we are not capable to do that, we can't survive it without men, we have to always depend upon men, we can do any occupation, we can't be independent, we have to always depend upon men. That is how they started to think. Thereby what happened was men were the dominant people within the society, right? Prepubescent marriages were the other curse on women, right? Or the child marriage was the other curse on women. Child widows were ill-treated within the society, right? So the child marriages were very prevalent within the society, thereby child widows were ill-treated, especially the girls were ill-treated within the society. They were forced to live a life with full of restrictions. They were restricted to attend almost all the social gatherings, such as auspicious ceremonies, festivals, any religious discussions, and etc. Thus, thereby, what happened was Indian women started to treat herself as a subordinate to men, as a mere instrument of men. What happened was ultimately, this is what happened. They started to think. Okay, they were not actually weak, but what happened was ultimately Indian women, they themselves started to think they are not capable enough. They are always subordinate to men. They started to think the fact that they can't survive without men. They had always to depend upon men, right? This further reduced her level of confidence, right? Ultimately, what happened was the women lost their confidence, right? Her roles began to stereotyped and composite as a mother, daughter, wife image, right? Her roles became stereotyped, and what happened was it was composited into mother, daughter, wife role. These beliefs were deeply rooted over a long period of time, and finally were treated. They were only capable of producing children, managing household tasks, right? So ultimately what happened was they were started to think, the society was given an identification for women as they are only capable of producing children and managing household tasks, right? So men during this era believed that women by nature wicked, susceptible, and passionate, and they are full of infirmities. That is how men within this era thought about women, right? Marriage was considered as sacred and indissoluble. Remarriage was only allowed to men, right? Remarriage was only allowed to men, but it wasn't allowed for women. It was restricted to women. If the wife was has only daughters, then or if she was quarrelsome by nature, husband had the chance to remarry without any delay, right? If a wife had only daughters, if she was unable to give a birth to boy, then the husband had the freedom to marry another woman, right? But never, the wife had never, the ladies or the women had that, never had that chance to remarry, right? So, and also according to Aitreya Brahmana, a daughter has been described as a misery, right? Anti-feminist literature was prevalent during this era. As we learned earlier, women had no religious life and spiritual right? All were restricted. She had no right to perform sacrifices or the sacrificial offerings by herself, right? Due to the fact that women were restricted from all the intellectual and spiritual nourishment, they collaborated women as sinful creatures, right? So they were the one who restricted everything, and ultimately they labeled women as sinful creatures because women were not given any chance to advance their, to make their spiritual nourishment. Thereby, they labeled women as sinful creatures, right? So a typical woman spent her youth serving parents, middle years serving and obeying her husband, and later years serving and obeying his grown children. Always she had to depend upon, in earlier years, depend upon her parents, especially to father, and the middle years she had to depend upon her husband and his parents, and later years she had to depend upon her children, right? So that is all about the women. Sorry, I think it's I'm very sorry, it's a bit late, right? So it is all about the women during the early Vedic period as well as the later Vedic period, right? So it is not that difficult. We have already went through these facts, right? So some kind of interesting topic, and during next lecture we are going to talk about the Buddha's attitudes. Now, so far we discussed about the early Vedic period and later Vedic period. Next lecture let's look at the Buddha's attitudes towards the women, right? So that is all. I'm not going to give you any homework tonight, right? So let's meet next week, next Tuesday, right? So thank you for joining with me. I got a bit late. I took some minutes from you. Thank you very much, and stay safe, and go through the lecture notes and start studying. And I will send you. I'm not yet prepared the revision schedule. Once I'm done with that, I will send it to you. Right? Start studying from now. Right? So thank you very much for joining with me, and let's see. I'm planning to see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Have a
very
good night.
much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
We have two papers, prescribed Pali and Pali text. So there are two papers altogether.
About Pali?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. I will actually, I have no idea about the Pali paper. I will ask for it from Bhante Devananda and let you know.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, you want to know whether there are two papers, two
Okay.
separate papers, right? Okay. Sorry. I have actually no idea about that, and I will check with that Bhante Devananda and let you know that.
Because
Miss Anupama, I received.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because in the timetable there is 2 days, Saturday and Monday. That's why we want to know.
For Pali paper.
For
the same paper. Okay. I will check that and let you know. Right. So Miss Anupama, I received your mail, and I will reply for that.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't get any time because I was busy in the evening. I
It's
will
okay,
get back
take
to you.
your time.
Okay. Right. So thank you very much for joining with me. Stay safe.
Thank you
Have
very
a good night.
much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.